Testing 1, 2. All right. So, good morning, everyone. It has been a little while since I've been on here. There's been a lot of stuff happening this past holiday season, which is kind of like, things have gotten busy. So, I kind of put my focus into certain areas. But because the year is almost over, I wanted to come on here and I wanted to give you a little bit of wisdom, something that you could take into your 2023 to make it the most exceptional year of your life. I know that is a very, very big claim to make, but I truly believe that if you listen to the lessons that I'm outlining here, lessons that you would get from your cup of coffee, I believe that it will be the best year of your life. One that literally transforms and sends you to a place that you've never been before. So without further ado, hi guys, my name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast, One Life, Coffee Wisdom. There is some ancient wisdom that says those who risk the least live the least. Said differently, the biggest risk you could take is taking no risk at all. When you look over the last year, 2022, did you take any big risks? And if not, maybe try to look at what are the habits, what are the things that you fell back into that maybe you did the year before and the year before that and the decade before that. Because before you can make any kind of change, you really do have to become conscious of where you're putting your energy, what habits you're falling back into. So there's 4 lessons that I really want to share with you that I believe will make your 2023 the most amazing year ever. But also it'll set you on a new trajectory, a trajectory that's aligned with your heart. And those 4 lessons are this: follow your palate. It's so easy to get caught up in the world of what everyone else is doing. And as a result, you start to silence this inner voice who wants more, who wants to live a life that is unique to you. Switch brewing methods. It's so easy to fall in the habit of doing the same thing over, but it's only by the introduction of something new that you start to get new visions, new inspirations. Give yourself one shot. This is one of my favorite ones because sometimes you can be doing the same thing over and over, and you leave yourself a back door. So you might commit to something, but then you give yourself an escape route. As a result, you never completely follow through. And then the last thing is sip of satisfaction. This is more of a forward thinking, saying, okay, well, what is it that I want? What am I going to regret? What is going to make a life that I want to live, a life that I want to be known for if I were to share it with people? So let's dive into those. Where do you fall? When you hear all those things, like, where are the habits? Do you do the same thing over, right? Have you taken any big risks? Do you start your day, every single action saying, well, what is the end result? What is it that I want for my day, my life? What is it? So let's start with number 1, follow your palate. Each one of us are originals. But if we follow where society is trying to push us, we tend to fall in with the crowd. We follow the herd. But each of us has a different palate. When I was at a cafe once, and I was talking to a woman, and I was tasting the espresso. And for me, the espresso was really, really bright. It wasn't a good shot pulled. I was talking to the woman, and we were just kind of talking about coffee. I was like, listen, taste this coffee. I was like, what do you taste? She's like, well, I mean, it's sour. I feel it on the sides. And she's going through all the characteristics of this coffee. And then I asked her, I was like, all right, well, tell me, do you find this shot pleasurable? Do you enjoy it? And actually, she stopped to think about it. And she then looked at me and she said, no, I do not. And then I asked, well, why do you drink it? One thing I forgot in the story was that before I even asked these questions, I asked her, whether or not she thought that this was a quality shot of espresso, in which she replied yes. And society at the time, there was this third wave around light roasted espresso, which I think is, most of it is pure crap. But there was this mindset that, oh, well, this is how it's supposed to be done. Therefore, this place is, follows this third wave idea of espresso. Therefore, it must be good. But isn't that true of your own life? Isn't that true that you may follow things because everyone else is doing it? But if you stop and you ask yourself, all right, well, is this something I find pleasurable? Is this what my heart is calling me to do? You might realize that you get a different answer. So I want you to look at what you've done in this past year, in the past decade, where you've been going. And then be honest with yourself. Are you being true to your palate? Are you being true to your heart? Are you going down the path that your heart is calling you to go down? Or are you literally following what society and what everyone else wants you to do? Number 2, switch brewing methods. It is said that we repeat most of our habits literally daily, right? There's thousands of habits that become so ingrained that unless you start to become conscious of them, you literally just, it's like an autopilot. You go through your day doing the same exact thing, never bothering to question it. But when you have an elevated awareness, when you set the intention to say, okay, well, let me look at how I've been living my life. Let me look at what results I've been getting. Let me look at the habitual thought patterns and where they've been leading me down. Now you start to develop some consciousness. Now you can say, okay, well, this is what happens. This is where it usually takes me. I can now decide to do something different. So the point is to notice and challenge your traditional way of thinking. There was a time where I was literally doing espresso every single day, right? I would wake up. It was very habitual. I was like, all right, shot of espresso, have my breakfast, and go about my day. But after doing it for a while, I realized that I wasn't getting the satisfaction out of that shot of espresso. And it wasn't because the shot was not being pulled correctly. It was just that I wanted something different. I wanted more variety in my life. So after talking with one of my friends, I was like, all right, well, let me try something different. We started talking about coffee pour-overs. So I started making pour-overs, and all of a sudden now, I started making pour-overs. I switched from doing espresso to doing pour-overs, something completely different. The point I'm trying to make is that unless you are conscious about switching up the habits in your daily routine, in your life, you're going to repeat the same thing. And inspiration doesn't happen in a vacuum. You have to step outside. You have to do something differently. That different thing could be going to a party that you were invited to, but don't know anybody. That different thing could be a conversation with somebody who allows you to see the world in a different way, different than how you've habitually been seeing it. The switch could literally be just you at the very beginning of your day, tuning into yourself and saying, what do I want for my day? How do I want to live things differently? And trying something, right? So many people, they get stuck because they're not willing to try. They're afraid of what it may happen if they don't get it right the first time. They're like, oh, well, all right, I want to feel better in the morning. Okay, well, what have I been doing in the morning? I wake up, I go right to my phone, I had my coffee, and then I start work. Well, what would a different day look like? Right? What if you got up first and you exercised? What if you got up first and you prayed and meditated? And then drank some water and gave yourself something healthy to eat before starting, and this is not right, I could change. And there's a difference here, right? Because this kind of goes with the lesson of burning your bridges. I'd given an example before of when I travel. I always travel, I book my flight, and then I book non-refundable. So this way, if there is any hesitancy in me in taking the trip, I know that I'm going to lose the $600 or whatever it is that I paid for that ticket. And that will usually give me enough pain to say, I am going. And there has been many times in the past where I had booked trips and then I was having second thoughts. I was being very hesitant and wanted to pull back, but I didn't. I pushed forward because I'd burned that bridge. I did not leave the back door open. This can be said in a couple different ways, right? There's a difference between leaving yourself a way out and then cutting off all other options, because the truth is, right, I could always, if I were to take this trip, right, and I would have a miserable time, I could always book another trip to come back. That's, there's very few things that we can do that are permanent, right? If you quit your job and you try something, it's not permanent. You could always go back to maybe finding a different job doing the same thing you did. But you will never know if you never try. And let's go to the last lesson. The sip of satisfaction. How often do you start your day and planning your year, for that matter, right? Because we're right at the cusp of 2023. How often do you say, well, what is it that I want to experience in 2023? What do I want to experience in life? What are the things that are going to leave me satisfied? It is one of the most important questions, and one of the most important questions that people fail to ask. I think about the sip of satisfaction. I like it with my morning coffee. When I think about my morning ritual, I think of stopping, reading, and even how I want to brew the coffee that day, right? Because certain times, certain days, I feel like one brewing method might give me more satisfaction than another brewing method, right? And that certain ritual, sometimes I just want to go outside, not do anything, and just sip my espresso. Other times, I find it more pleasurable to read because the coffee grounds me, and then all of a sudden, reading, it kind of opens me up, and I become very present in whatever lessons I'm learning in the book, which are usually personal development books. I tend to soak in, and it is one of the reasons why I'm here right now doing this episode, was because of that ritual. But what can that be said? How can you equate this to life? We're approaching a new year. What is it that you want out of this new year? What is it that you want out of your life? When you look back, it's like, all right, well, imagine yourself like this cup of coffee. You're looking at it from the perspective of having already enjoyed it, right? It's like the rocking chair test. You're 95 years old and you're looking back on your life and you're thinking about all the great things you did. What are those things? What are the things that if you don't do, you're going to regret? For me, one of those things was going to Rome, Italy. I'd always wanted to. In 2006, I went to Rome. And I had regretted not moving there. Well, I mean, I could have moved there, but I didn't have citizenship, which I do now. And so every few years, I would look back and always wish that I'd given myself that opportunity. Now, we are more than, I think, like almost 20 years out. And that desire has always been there. It's a little bit differently now. But in November, I went to Italy with my sister. And as I was there, it's funny because I was there with my sister. My intention was to be her guide, to show her aspects of Italy that I love. So this way to kind of stir that travel bug in her, because I wanted her to experience life differently than the traditional not even nine to five. Her job's more like 9 to 9. But to step out and just see that there's different ways of living, and also to stir this travel bug so this way she can get more enjoyment out of life. Again, I'm probably projecting a little bit there. And while I was there, away from everything, I started to think about this exact question. Well, what is that satisfaction I want? Or what was it that I'm going to regret? Looking back in my life, what are the most joyous moments that I would want to have in my life? What would I regret not doing or having? And one of those things was that trip, that move to Italy, the move to Europe. Now, if I'm honest with you, do I feel like Europe is my place? Not really, right? I don't, like, I'm not feeling this pull, but at the same time, it's tough to put yourself in like that situation sometimes, because there's a lot of influences that are saying this is what you got to quiet everything. And then in the silence, the heart speaks. So I gave myself the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to decide what it is that I want while I'm there. If I feel like this is what I'm being called to do, if I'm feeling like this is what my heart wants, then I will stay. And if you're listening to this and you drink my coffee, don't worry. I'm going to be coming back. I'm brewing, I'm roasting, all that stuff has been taken care of. But I want to tune in. The point was to tune into my own heart and say, well, what is it that I want from my life? Taking all the other influences away to literally be left with just what was pure, what was true. What is it that you want for your life? What is it that when you get to the very end, you'll look back and you'll say to yourself, man, that was a life well lived. Just hearing these words might stir your imagination and your inspiration for something that you may have forgotten a long, long time ago that just resurfaced. I want you to take that, whatever it is, and just start to water it in the next few days, right? We could literally, it's funny, as Americans, we set these these goals yearly, right? It's like, all right, and then 1 month in, February, we're like, oh shit, I didn't follow through. The rest of the year is garbage. All right, I'll wait until 2024. It sounds so stupid, but that's a lot of people's mindset. When the truth is that you can make any decision at any moment to start over and choose a new direction. So I wanted to start to water that plant so that it may that sapling, so that it grow into a tree. I can't do anything. I mean, I'm encouraging you to take the watering can and to start watering that sapling. And just to imagine, like, well, what if I did this? What if that happened? But ask yourself from the perspective of what you want, from the best thing happening, not from what the worst is. Look, what is the best thing that could happen? The mind will always go towards pessimism to try to keep us safe. It's just how the mind's been conditioned, how society's conditioned it. It's a survival mechanism. So you have to consciously say, okay, well, what is the best that could happen? How would it change my life for the positive if I took this action? You have to be careful how you phrase the questions in your mind, because that is what's going to literally create the images, the emotions that are going to either move you forward or take you 3 steps back. That is all I've got for you guys today. I firmly believe that if you were to I'll recap these lessons, but if you were to follow these lessons, it will take you to a place where you won't even recognize yourself. So I'll repeat the lessons in coffee terms, and then I will give you kind of just another description of that. So this way, if you don't understand my coffee lingo and how this coffee wisdom applies to your life, you'll understand it when I explain it in layman terms. Follow your own palate. I said this was like, saying, well, is this a cup of coffee that I like? If not, switch it up. This is following your heart, the beat of your own drum, right? Do you like your job? Do you like the way you respond to your loved ones? Do you like your body? Do you like your physical health? If you don't, change it. Do not follow the crowd, because that is not going to lead you to a place where you're going to be ultimately fulfilled. I'm talking more about where you're feeling called, your life path. Secondly, switch brewing methods. Said differently, try something new. Get yourself out into the environment, because if you don't, you're literally going to fall into the same habitual patterns, and you'll literally cycle in your day. Try something new. Experience something new. Even if you think, oh, I can't do this because X, Y, and Z. Say, no, I am going to do it because I know that every time I put myself into experiences as new, I am going to come away with some new understanding of myself. There's always something to gain. Even when you give, whenever we give, we always receive something back. So even if like volunteering your time, anything that's going to get you outside of your habitual way of living will give you some insight as to what you want, because it'll bring you into that present moment. Give yourself one shot. Here we said this was cutting off all other possibilities, meaning if I wanted to move to Italy, right? One-way ticket, getting the apartment, committing to myself, and maybe telling some close friends who I know will cheer me on, and taking all the steps beforehand to ensure that it is the right move and that everything flows clearly. If it is a trainer, right? Say you want to get your body in shape. Now, let's say, okay, I'm going to buy 10 sessions with the trainer that are non-refundable. I know I can't get that money back. 10 sessions, $2,000. Oh man, I don't really have that money to lose. I better follow through. But always knowing that there's always a way back, right? You're never completely lost. You're never out in the cold. I mean, and this could be applied to different things, right? When we're talking about your body, a lot of time you don't want to go back to that spot, right? You want to move forward and you never want to look back. But maybe by getting some perspective, you may realize, you know what, I actually did like that job. I tried this out. I'm happy that I tried it, but I'm going to go back there. And then in which case, there's always a route back. But just keep your eyes looking forward. And then lastly, the sip of satisfaction. Start your day with your intention of what it is you want. Live your life with what is going to give you that satisfaction. Another way to say it is look back. Say, how do I want to live my life? How do I want to be remembered? What will I love about my life? What will I regret not doing if I don't do it? From that standpoint, then start to plan your life. Then start to plan your days and your years. I hope you enjoyed this episode here. This was really, I want to set your new year in the right, with a different step on a path that is uniquely you, a path that's unique to your heart. So I hope you take these lessons here from my morning cup of coffee and you apply it to your life. And I promise you, and I know beyond a reason of a doubt, if you do this, that your life will transform, your year will be transformed to the point where you won't even recognize yourself. And I say that in the most positive way possible. Remember, guys, you only get one life. Live it. For those of you who want to start their life, you can send me a message via my website, www.donnyraus.com, DonnyRaus.com. In prior episodes, I had mentioned doing a Ready, Set, Live workshop where we plan your year and say, okay, well, where is it that I want to go? What is it that I want to have happen in this year? I decided I was going to put it in the website, but I'm likely going to just keep it to a close group of friends. If you would like to join that, you could send me a message via the website, www.donnyraus.com, and I will gladly put you on that list. It's going to be happening towards the end of January. So that is all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in today. God bless you, and I will see you again in 2023.